Good evening, good evening. If we could all take our seats, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so happy to have you here tonight. Go ahead, grab your seat, we'll get started. All right. Welcome, everyone, to our second community conversation on the fiscal year 2025 operating budget. My name is Boyende Onijala, and I'm the Executive Director of the Department of Communications and Community Outreach. We are so glad that you've joined us this evening to have a really in-depth conversation about the operating budget process. You'll have an opportunity to ask the superintendent questions about where does all this $2 billion plus, where do they go? How are we spending it? Are these investments worth it? Are we seeing the right outcomes and results from these investments? So tonight you'll hear a short presentation from the superintendent. We'll play our new Budget 101 video for you. Following Dr. Rogers' presentation, you'll have an opportunity to talk at your table, answer 3 questions that really reflect on what you want to see us improve in the process. What do you believe is working or not working in terms of our investments, strategies, efforts, programs, and then a chance for you to just offer us some feedback on what your perspectives are about this budget process. Dr. Rogers, since she started her tenure as superintendent, has made it very clear that community engagement, community outreach, hearing directly from staff, from families, from students is a top priority for her. And over the summer and into the early fall, we went to 10 schools where she had meet and greets, and now we're going to have 5 meetings about the operating budget, and we're not going to stop there. We're going to keep going around the county, listening, learning, getting insight, getting feedback from you all. So tonight is just one example of that commitment that our superintendent has to hearing from you. On your table, you'll see feedback question cards. If you're shy, which I encourage you not to be, because we're all friends and family in this room, we don't bite, you can put your question down on this card and we'll collect it. But since we're such a small group here, I encourage you to stand up and ask your question, because people may have the same question and it's important that we hear each other's thoughts. But if you are feeling kind of shy, this is available for you. And when we get to the section of the program where we're doing our table activity and conversation, we ask that you select one spokesperson who's going to report out about what you discussed at your table. And then following that will be the general question and answer portion where, again, like I said, you'll have an opportunity to ask the superintendent all of your burning questions about the budget. So I'd like to get us started with our new Budget 101 video. Tonight when you all get home and you're relaxing, having dinner, a little snack, pull up your laptop, go to the Budget 101 website, take a look. If looking at numbers is your thing, I think you'll find it very, very exciting. All jokes aside, we have a lot of great content on that website that really tries to make the process as user-friendly, easy for you to understand, follow along the terms on that website. So again, if you haven't had an opportunity to check out our new Budget 101 website, we encourage you to do so. And now we are going to play our video.
Our vision: to be among the highest performing school systems in the state and the nation. Our purpose: to increase achievement for all students and prepare students to thrive in college, career, or the military. Every day, BCPS welcomes and engages more than 110,000 students in 176 schools, programs, and centers. Our students, staff, parents, and community members are the heart of this school system, and our work is driven by their boundless potential. We work hard to provide the instruction, services, and opportunity Team BCPS students need to be successful and thrive in the future. We do this through our operating budget, which pays for the staff, resources, and materials our schools need. It is important that our community understands how the BCPS operating budget is developed and funded, and how the money is spent. Work on the operating budget for the next fiscal year typically begins in the summer with a preliminary estimate completed by early fall. After considering all requests from BCPS offices and reviewing recommendations from schools, executive leadership, and stakeholder groups, the superintendent submits a proposed budget to the Board of Education in January. The proposed operating budget is a reflection of our values, high expectations for students and staff, and commitment to pursuing excellence in all areas of our work. The board holds public hearings to gather comments and feedback from the community, and then works to finalize their budget proposal, which is submitted to the Baltimore County Executive and the County Council. The Council also holds a public hearing and approves a budget for the county, which includes BCPS. The board approves a final budget for BCPS in May. 48% of the total BCPS budget comes from Baltimore County government. Nearly 38% of the budget comes from the state, and almost 14% comes from federal and other sources. The vast majority of the BCPS operating budget goes into the classroom. For every dollar in our budget, more than 63 cents is spent on instruction, including teachers, principals, staff, and instructional materials. About 15 cents of every dollar goes to other services for schools, like bus transportation for more than 80,000 students a day, nutritious meals, and support staff, including social workers, psychologists, custodial, and maintenance workers. About 6 cents of every dollar is spent on central office staff. Our central office team does critical work, including hiring, teacher and staff training, and providing direct support and oversight to our 176 schools, programs, and centers. Overall, nearly 83% of the BCPS operating budget goes to pay for salaries and benefits to support and retain our outstanding team BCPS staff members. The BCPS operating budget lays out the strategies we will use to achieve our goals and matches them with the investments we need to implement the strategy. Our collective efforts and strategic investments will help make BCPS a premier system in Maryland.
All right, and so before I welcome the superintendent, I do want to take a moment to recognize our board members that we have with us this evening. Dr. Brenda Savoy, thank you for joining us. Welcome. I saw Ms. Stalusky, welcome, welcome. And our board chair is here somewhere. I think she was on a call. Janie Lichter is here with us, so welcome, Janie, wherever you are. Oh, she's waving from over there. Welcome. Did I miss anyone? Okay, I think I got everyone. All right, Dr. Rogers, over to you.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Or it's not, oh no, it's evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Truly appreciate you coming out in the evening to hear about the operating budget and our process. And, you know, as Ms. Onijala shared, there will be an opportunity for you to have a conversation at your table, as well as an opportunity for you to ask direct questions. One of the reasons why it was so important for us to unpack the process for the operating budget for all stakeholders in Baltimore County Public Schools is because we have shared very clear priorities moving forward, and we believe that it's important that when you look at the budget for FY25, that the budget aligns to our stated priorities. It's also important because we know that we are moving forward with some challenging fiscal times, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. The first thing is our priorities. We have shared since this summer, and hopefully you continue to see through our actions, and you will continue to see, our top priority is academic achievement. We know that we exist in order to make sure that all of our students are succeeding academically. In order to do that, we know that there are other pieces that we have to tend to, making sure that we have a strong infrastructure, efficient, effective services that touches every single side of BCPS. We're talking about schools, we're talking about operations, we're also talking about central offices. We also want to make sure that schools and offices are safe. Safety and climate is of paramount importance to us. We know that students need to feel safe in order to tend to learning, but we also know that the adults that work in those schools need to feel safe in order to do their best work, to go the extra mile, to pour into students, and everyone deserves to feel that way. But in addition to safety, we've added climate because we're not just talking about that physical safety. We're also talking about social emotional safety. It's important to us that schools and offices have a climate where everyone feels valued, everyone's input is heard, and everyone feels empowered to share in the problem solving. We are a human business filled with 20,000 staff members, over 111,000 students. And so there are going to be things that happen. How we respond to those things, that's what we're looking forward to. We're looking forward to making sure that we respond to a way that always leaves everyone's dignity intact as we deal with hard situations, difficult challenges that will continue to come our way. And the last one, the most important, if we don't have it, we can't do any of this, is highly effective staff. And so when we talk about highly effective staff, we are talking about getting people here, so recruitment. What are the innovative things that we're doing to expand our recruitment efforts? And it's really a year-round process for all positions across Team BCPS, but also what are we doing to retain staff? And when we talk about retaining staff, I think about that in two areas. One, professional learning, no matter what role you're in, so that you can bring your best self to work, that you're updated on the current strategies and resources. And then the other piece is making sure that in addition to having access to high quality professional learning, that you have access to places that make you want to stay. So compensation is a piece of it, but again, having a voice in the schools and offices, that's what makes the difference. People don't tend to leave and shy away from hard work, but they tend to leave where they feel frustrated, where they feel unheard, where they don't feel valued. And so it's part of our commitment in Team BCPS that we are growing our staff, that we are growing veteran teachers, leaders, et cetera, that we don't want a revolving door. And so we want to hear what are the changes that we need to make, and we're committed to going out to find out in schools and in offices moving forward. And so I shared part of the importance of sharing the budget is that we know that FY25 is going to be a challenging fiscal time. Everyone knows for the last few years since COVID, ESSER dollars have poured millions of dollars into schools across the nation. That money ends September 30th, 2024. For Baltimore County, we're talking about $84 million. That goes away. So that's a big deal. So part of the work that we've done, we have kicked off budget season early, shared information with all members of Team BCPS, and seeking input, soliciting input, whether we're talking about from a survey or we're talking about having direct conversations with principals, with leaders of central office, with the advisory groups as we move forward, because we have to identify out of that $84 million, there are certain things that we funded with those funds that must continue. And so we have to identify how do we reallocate or repurpose existing funding to keep that going. Some of those things, number one, the extra 15 minutes of school. So we were able to extend our school day to be in alignment with the other systems across Maryland. Depending on the year, that costs anywhere from $33 to $35 million that we need to keep going. We also had safety assistance in all of our secondary schools, and this year we expanded to have safety assistance in a differentiated model for elementary schools. The way that safety and climate is moving in schools, we don't want to go back. We want to keep all of our safety assistance in our school. That's an additional $6 million. We were able this summer to cut the number of special ed teacher vacancies that we had in our buildings by a half. We were also able to cut dramatically the number of vacancies that we had in our high needs schools, and that was by providing different incentives over the summer for our teachers to choose to go to a more challenging situation or choose to leave somewhere that you are already working in, familiar with staff, with the families, to go into one of our higher needs schools. That's money that we want to continue moving into this year. all of the additional add-ons that we were able to provide to our bus drivers, whether it was $2 an hour or the $4 an hour that we were able to provide to our adult assistants, where principals are sharing for the first time in a long time that they have no vacancies, substitute teachers, et cetera. That also came from ESSER funding that we need to continue to move forward. And so that coupled with Blueprint, everyone knows that Blueprint infuses millions of dollars into every school system's budget for the next several years. What people don't necessarily know is when you look at the formula for FY25, it is the smallest percentage of funding that's going to go to the school system. So specifically, it's less than 2% this coming year, 1.7% where we received about 4% this year. So FY26 and the out years, those look much better in terms of the Blueprint money that's coming. But when we think about FY25, we're going to have to make some decisions about how we choose to allocate our money. And so it's very important that we hear from you, your feedback about what is a priority, what do you think is working, what are those areas where you know that we typically spend money on that perhaps we can make a different choice moving forward, because we're not going to turn around and ask our funding partners to give us $84 million. That is not a reasonable request, and it's not something that we're going to have to do. We have a $2.8 billion, which is pretty significant, and so we have to work together to find as many ways as possible internally to reallocate funds so that we can ask for the smallest amount of money that's possible, so that we can have that support when we go to our county executive as well as our county council for final approval. So want to share a few things that you'll find when you go to Budget 101. The first is, and the video did a good job of showing, where does all of our money come from? So the $2.8 billion, we have about 38% comes from the state of Maryland, 48%, the largest percent of our budget comes from Baltimore County government. Federal government gives us almost 11%, and then you have other grant funds for almost 3% of our budget. In terms of where we spend our money, 53% salary and wages. The video talked about 6 cents or 6% of every dollar that goes to central office. So there is this belief that we have an extremely large central office. Central office is there to support all of our schools directly. It is 6% of our budget. We also need operations, so the funding to keep the lights on, all of the transportation that we bring back and forth, 80,000 students every single day, and we feed all of our students food and nutrition. That is part of our operating budget as well. Let's see. You cannot see this, however. When you go to Budget 101, you will see that we have been very open about how have we spent the money, not only this current FY24 year, but looking several years so you can see the trends. So everything from FY 2018 to current is on Budget 101, where you can see so that you can discern, how and where we're spending money. Everything from executive level staff, the changes over the years, executive directors, classroom teachers, our psychologists, media specialists, any role that you can think of, health assistants, bus attendants, bus drivers, is on this chart for you to take a look at. When we talk about allocating resources to schools, the first thing we do is we look at enrollment. So there is a baseline. Based on the number of students that you have in a particular grade level, that's how we allocate staffing of teachers and other resources to schools. On top of that, we look at need. So need can be service groups, whether we're talking about free and reduced meals, students receiving special education services, students receiving English language services. That is another layer of support and funding that we provide to our schools. And lastly, programs. So where we have magnet programs, CTE programs that need specialized services, specialized staff to run it, we also look at that in terms of how we allocate resources directly to our schools. As I shared before, we started budget season much earlier this year because we know we have a challenging budget this year coming. And so we will continue all of our work to gather feedback, to make decisions. I also neglected to mention that this year, one thing that we're doing is zero-based budgeting. And so typically, when you have a budget that's as large as ours, you have a school system that is as large as ours, you start off with built-ins. Built-ins are, what is the amount of money that you spent last year? And then a department or a division will request additional requests. And so we didn't go that route where we said, you spent $200,000, we don't have any department that little, as large as we are. What we said is, you have to provide a justification for every line item that you are requesting. It is not a given that you're going to receive the same amount of money that you received in the past, because we know that we have to find places to make cuts. And so we're really asking departments, we're asking divisions to work internally to really examine the work that they're doing, to gather that feedback from principals, from other offices, to find out things that perhaps we've paid for in the past that people don't really use, or we paid for them and they would be nice to have, but they're not must-have this year coming. We are going to continue this process from September to December. The division chiefs will propose to me what they think they need for this year coming. Additionally, there will be different work sessions. In January, I will propose the recommended operating budget to the Board of Education. In February, the board will approve the budget with any changes that they feel need to be made. Then it goes to the county executive, then the county council for final approval. In May and July 1st, the new funds for the new fiscal year become available. So that was a whole lot of talking to kind of walk you through our process, our rationale, what's changing, why we really want you to provide some feedback and really understand the process, because we understand with such a large budget and such a large school system, sometimes there is the belief that there are large pots of money that exist. And so that's why we are doing everything possible to make sure that you have all the information about what are the pots of money, where do they come from, where do they go, and then you can still share with us considerations as we think about the changes that we need to make to the upcoming budget. And so I'm going to invite our Executive Director of Communications to come and walk us through the next steps. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rogers. As promised, I said we were going to share a lot of information, so that was a lot of information. You're probably taking it all in, but as you do that, we do have 3 questions up on the screen. We ask that you huddle together at tables, so if you're kind of one person at a table, join another group. Yep, move on over. And we're going to walk around with chart paper. And here are the 3 questions we want you to reflect on. What areas investments should BCPS prioritize in this upcoming operating budget request, FY25? Please share feedback on 2 to 3 strategies, programs, or efforts you believe are working or not, as I said earlier, to improve outcomes for students. And finally, what improvements would you like to see with the current operating budget process as it's happened in Baltimore County Public Schools? We're trying new things while we're all here tonight, but we want to hear from you. What else could we be doing to improve this process to ensure that everyone understands? I did notice Board Member Young coming in. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Please wave. And Janie was waving from over there. Board Chair Lichter, thank you so much for joining us. And so if you all could come together at tables. My colleagues are handing out chart paper. We're going to give you about 10 minutes to talk at your table, write down your thoughts, answers, and then pick your brave spokesperson who's going to stand up and report out in front of everyone. And then we'll come back together, do that reporting out, and then have a period of question and answer for the superintendent. So 10 minutes, and the questions will remain up on the screen. Thank you.
think what is interesting, right, is discrepancies, right? I feel like this is good.
I'm sorry, I really interrupted you. Luke and Chris, Chief Financial Officer, and these are all really, really good. The capital, and that is a self-supporting fund. These are good. These are good. And I should, that you would never know. But the lunches are paid for separately. It's, there's and that doesn't make this not legitimate. So I would just keep it on. Leave it on the, yes. I just wanted to let you know. It comes from a common well, right down to you get the federal dollars, paying, we actually pay service. No, it's not private. It comes from the, most of it comes from the federal government. Some of it comes from, some of it comes from their well, let me know if you have any questions.
Guidance counseling has gone up by 40 teachers, 40 guidance counselors since we started. Psychologists have only increased by 1, so no school psychologist. Therapists has gone up by 1. Social worker has gone up by so for example, now one of the problems is that when you look at the enrollment, we went way out after COVID, so we're still coming up, so some of that flux is based on but the need is like, and the need is higher, especially after COVID. So one thing I want to say for the current budget process, which is always violated, is they calculate staffing based on enrollment as of September 3rd. Say that again. They calculate staffing based on enrollment on a specific September 3rd. I'm an Excel teacher. The amount of children
All right, this is our 5-minute warning. 5-minute warning to start to wrap up your points before we come together and present. Thank you.
So I think some of that is based on the budget process and based on federal funding and state funding. But I wish there was a way to change that. You can't do by May. I get that. Even like January, I get that. So, right, it's up far in the weeds. I hear all the time. 4,000, we went down 4,000 students. And a lot of them need their that's that crucial, that crucial time. But that's why I think we need the therapists and the guidance counselors.
And like the social workers and all that, so is that, you see a lot of that?
All right, let's start wrapping up our thoughts. I'm getting a look. You didn't get through the first bullet? Okay, one more minute. One more minute. That's some good conversation happening.
Take a look, yes, I'm sure you'll be looking closely. No, that's not what it's called. No, we're expecting.
Right, hopefully you got to bullet 2. I see them still talking, but we're gonna, they got to bullet 2? All right. Okay. All right, so pick out your spokesperson. Charlie, let's give them a few more seconds, so maybe start back there so they could finish writing. Are you good? All right. Okay, let's come together. My colleague, Charlie Herndon, is gonna be walking around to the tables, and please stand. And he'll hold the microphone for you so you can report out.
Hi. We had parents and staff in our group, which was great. We got a little distracted by doing some capital budget things like facility repairs and renovations and quality control and lunch options and things like that. So, but we were told that's different budgets, so just saying my piece on that one. I think we all agreed, though, that staffing is a big issue, and especially recruitment and retention. Ms. Campbell is a teacher who's leaving after a third year. She knows a teacher. I'm sorry, not her.
Don't go.
She knows
Stay.
a teacher leaving after 3 years. I know a teacher is out leaving, hopefully after 2. We'll see if they make it. So getting teachers in, but then keeping them. And some of that speaks to something else we said here is having more counselors and therapists and social workers and all that, because we've just come into a different environment since COVID that we need to try to support those students in different ways. So that kind of all goes together with behaviors. One thing we said we didn't quite make it to 2 and we skipped to 3, and improvements is, and I know this is a bigger question, is our enrollment, I believe, is based on September 30th numbers. And I know because we have this huge calendar, but there's so much enrollment after September 30th. And I know you can't do it based on June 30th, but if we could push that 2 weeks, a month, anything would help. Because we've had at least a dozen students, more than that, enroll since September 30th, and they're not gonna count. But they are at our school, and they need resources, but they're not gonna count. Did I forget anything, ladies?
No, you got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead and hold it.
Okay. Oh, you're going to hold it. Okay. So we talked about, in terms of prioritizing, we talked about addressing truancy and how to do that. We came up with more after-school activities and opportunities for the students to engage, because when they're more engaged, they're more involved in school. But then one of the barriers for that is transportation, so more after-school transportation so that they can be involved in those activities. Funding for extra duty pay for the teachers, we think that's what it was called, extra duty pay. And communicating effectively to make sure everyone is aware that these opportunities are available. For the second question, we talked about investment in teachers, just money, morale, just focusing on job satisfaction, and also more counselors. I know you guys said that too. And other improvements, money for teachers to outfit or supply their rooms beyond the exchangery. We did talk about that. And also address rodent issues.
Thank you.
Rodent issues and mice.
Rodents and mice. Where's my speaker?
Probably say it's a good Oh, thank you so much. Okay, only have a few things here that I wanted to ask, and I wanted to say that because we are doing a lot of accommodations in the school system, I understand that. That's a great thing, and I myself feel that we should have certain special accommodations for non-binary students. Instead of them sharing the restroom who have not fully transitioned with girls, and I'm saying this because of a sanitary condition, meaning that you don't want any stuff on the toilet seats, and I'm saying this because my kid is in elementary school, and I doubt when she goes to the bathroom that she knows to use one of those pull-outs. I'm pretty sure they're all in elementary school just sitting on those things. If a separate bathroom cannot be accommodated, then I have another solution, is that sanitary wipes in the bathrooms that that can be wiped down, you know, periodically and things like that, that, you know, for the little ones and the ones that don't, you know, actually know, they just go in there and just go. I also have uniforms for students. I mean, I would love uniforms for students so that we can all make our schools about education. I understand everybody wants to be individuals and everything, but right now I think the only focus is education, and I believe that we can become one in unity if we all had uniforms. I also think uniforms are actually a great thing for students because, you know, how some students sometimes they kind of look at what people wear and things at school, and, you know, they kind of, you know, scale everybody, and sometimes it could be a good thing when when it's not about what somebody wears. If we're all wearing the same thing, then we all are in unity. You wearing the same thing, I'm wearing the same thing, you know, I only know you by your character. And so the budget part for that is that the school provides for the teachers as well. They could be polo shirts with the school logo on it, so everybody can be uniformed and everything is not really about individuality, it's about unity. and us being able to see each other with our character and who we are, and not really focused on, you know, what we different wear when we come to school. So I think that's the only thing that I have.
Thank you.
Group, just want to make sure that question. Yeah? Dr. Lee, did you want to report out on the items, the questions?
Stand up. Good evening. Okay. One of the things, a couple of things we talked about was more funding for year-round schooling or something of that nature to try to eliminate some of those deficits, maybe like summer academies or something along that line. We have a lot of students coming out of COVID that had a lot of deficits going from elementary to middle or middle to high. The other thing we talked about was partnering with organizations in the afternoons. In some cases, kids can't stay, so trying to figure out a way to either provide more transportation so they can take advantage of those learning opportunities as well. And the last thing was maybe offering summer opportunities. Like we have a lot of mentoring programs, but that could be merged with those academic learning opportunities during the summer for either males, females, what have you. I know in some rural districts they do more of a year-round model. They take certain time off, but I don't think we could do that, but just having something specifically designed just to improve those outcomes so that it helps us when they hit the ground in the fall. That was it. Yep.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think we got to all of our tables. I don't know if you all had, oh, there's, okay.
We
For-
were having a very
Yeah.
long discussion.
So for the
So, yes.
questions, okay, because then we'll go
Yes.
to general Q&A.
No, it wasn't a question. It was one of
Okay,
the.
go ahead, yes.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So on top of the mentoring programs that were mentioned earlier, we were also talking about, we know there's a downward trend with teachers staying in the classroom. There obviously has been something that took place over the course of 3 years where teachers do not want to stay. And given the fact that the trend was normal, used to be 5 years where teachers would stay, is now going to 3 years and slowly decreasing. So we were thinking maybe there's some kind of way that something could be found in the budget where you could enhance teacher well-being, whether it be some type of mental health day, it could be something that is going to encourage teachers to stay, because we already know that recruiting is a challenge, but at least once you have them in there, keeping them there and doing some type of something in the budget, again, but all money-wise, but if there's something that can be done to encourage teachers in the beginning, the middle, and the end, so that you know why teachers want to leave, so that you could prevent that in the future from happening. So that was one thing, and the coaching and mentoring. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. All right, round of applause for everyone. Thank you for your feedback. And now we'll have just our general question and answer about the budget. So if you have any specific questions for the superintendent, she is happy to answer those questions about the budget, about the process, where the money's going, what we can be doing differently. So we'll open that up for a few minutes, and then we'll hear some closing remarks, and then everyone can go home, have a nice dinner, relax, and get ready for Wednesday.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. And you have a question?
No, I was just saying
Tomorrow's color is
We're
orange.
orange. Any questions for Dr. Rogers? Yes, Charlie.
Yeah, I have a soft voice. Thank you. You mentioned for the 2025 funding, zero-based budget, you asked central staff for things they don't need or don't use, don't need. Can you tell us a little bit more, like what are they saying they don't need or don't utilize?
So, central office staff, every office and division gets a certain allocation. And so you have to look at currently what you spend the money on. So for example, when I used to be the chief of organizational effectiveness, one area that we used to spend funding on was perhaps paying for conferences for, staff members to attend. And so, when you're developing this budget, you look at how much you spent over the last few years. You either say you want to reduce the amount, or you're going to take 1 year of not sending people to conferences so that your bottom line shows a reduction. And so it's items like that. You're welcome. Yes.
Yes, the elementary school I'm at has had, we're on our third year of having a virtual speech-language pathologist. She is excellent, but virtual for a 3-year-old getting speech, it's a bit of a challenge. And she has a great assistant as well, so this is nothing on her. However, I'm just curious, she's, I don't even know, Pittsburgh or someplace. Is she are those virtual SLPs and all those, are they contract employees or are they BCPS? Does that make a difference as far as salary and therefore influence the budget on trying to get people in person who are part of BCPS? I honestly don't know if she is.
So she could be either. It does make a difference on the budget. So speech language pathology, that's one of our related service providing areas with a major shortage nationally. And so we have reached out far and wide. We will take everyone who graduates. We will provide the training that they need. If someone is contractual and it's part-time, depending on what the hourly rate is, that can be a savings for the system because you don't provide all the benefits that you provide to an FTE staff member, someone who's full-time that gets, workers' comp insurance and all those other benefits. So it all depends on, the hourly rate and how many hours the person is working. If they're part-time versus full-time, a lot of times in those specific job categories, we find that we're able to staff them easier with that flexibility of being virtual. Some of the ways that we've tried to compensate, particularly speech and language, and you need to see the movement of the mouth for sounds and things like that, is that we've provided that extra person that serves as a liaison that goes directly into your building to try. She's great too. I'm glad to hear that. She's there. So, trying to compensate for that. But we also have, as a result of one of the community conversations, a small group of speech and language providers who have committed to working together to try to think of some innovative ways, whether it's we try to bring in retired SLPs and other service providers at least part-time, or some other partnerships with some of the neighboring universities. So we have a small group that is working on that, but that is why you see the outside, because the last thing you want to do is not to be able to provide the service at all. But we realize face-to-face is the goal and what we're trying to build towards again, but that's how it impacts the budget. It specifically depends on what their hourly rate is and whether they're part-time or full-time.
Any other questions? Going once. All right, going twice. Dr. Rogers, here's what we heard in terms of feedback.
Okay.
Turn it over to you for any closing remarks.
All right, thank you. So we have some trends on this card around recruitment and retention, as I spoke to in the beginning. The fourth priority being highly effective staff. That is recruitment and retention. We need to bring high quality people in, and I was very proud at probably maybe 2 board meetings ago, our last group of people that we brought in, we stole them from other school systems. And let me tell you, in Maryland school systems, that is a big deal, and it is moving in the right direction. Now, I had to see the superintendent of that unnamed school system a few days later. I said, sorry, but thank you. And so, that's where we want to go. And to your point, Dr. Stitt, when we get the people here, then how do we keep them? I talked in the beginning about growing a veteran staff. We are not the school system that is going to dole out packages for early retirement. We want you to stay and 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and keep going. And so we're definitely invested in that. Part of that, the climates that we're creating in our schools. And then the other piece is professional learning, giving people the opportunity to do their best work. So you don't only have good intentions, but you're equipped to do that work, whether it's in a school or in an office or to be a leader. And so we're definitely committed to that. Those summer opportunities, I will let you know, just yesterday we were in our executive leadership team meeting, and we received a presentation because we put out a charge to Dr. Elmendorf and team about our summer opportunities. We paid for the vast majority of all of our summer programs over the last few years using ESSER funding. ESSER funding is going away. However, summer opportunities cannot go away. We know it's a high leverage strategy for students, so we have to be, creative in terms of how we find funding, but it's something that we have to do. And so you'll hear more information on that very soon for all levels in terms of what we're doing and access to our students. I see morale on here, and again, that commitment to climate in schools and offices so everyone stays, so we can continue to do this work. Enrollment count, I think that's something when we go to session, we can petition on behalf of the school systems, because I agree with you. We're even going to put a system in place where schools have an opportunity after they receive their staffing to reconcile and provide any updates on the actual students that are, your terminal grade that are leaving versus the number of students that are coming in, so we can get it right from the beginning. So that's definitely something that we can, bring forward to our legislators. Year-round schooling, not FY25 when we're in a tight budget. I hear and accept the challenge, maybe a little longer down the road, and it takes some planning for us to do and see who would be interested in that. It's not out of the question to at least consider at a deeper level. Continue with our partnerships, and one group, I'm sorry that we asked you to repeat what you said at the end. I'm not going to name what you said, but I am going to tell you that our Chief Operating Officer is here. Mr. Chris Roberts is our Director of Maintenance. He is definitely 100% engaged and committed to keeping our buildings in good repair and addressing issues as they come. We will be sharing with him. Dr. Grimm probably already shared with him that comment that we heard. That is something that I cannot. I taught at a chemistry desk at Woodlawn High School 27 years ago from the top of the desk for the entire period. So there are adults now who will tell you that's true. So I get you, I hear you, and we will address it. And especially with the changing weather, it does something that's yucky. But we will, okay, let's not discuss. But it is on the radar. It is certainly on the radar. I just want to thank all of you for being here this evening, all of you for providing input, and again, encourage you to go to Budget 101. Anything that you can do to provide, feedback to us in terms of what do you think we need to prioritize as we move into, these tight financial times. Just for 1 year, FY25 only, that would be my luck. But FY26 and et cetera, funds look like they're going to be pretty good in terms of what's coming in with Blueprint and things of that nature. So thank you for your time, thank you for your feedback, and all of you have a great evening.
All right, and if you all are free next week, please join us at Parkville High School, because why not? I mean, we're having a good time. We're having great conversation. And then, next week, Lock Raven, and then Parkville, and then we're going to wrap up this series at Western School of Technology. So why not come to the next three? Because I think it's going to be great, and we'll have lots of great conversation. So thank you all. Drive safely. Have a good evening, and we'll see you next time.